So I actually want to start with a real life example, a story that happened literally today, like 2 hours ago. So if you remember, the first pathway in the Pearl sequence is actually the pathway of initiative, right? We start with our vocation, which is like this transformed core wound that drives us. It's the engine that drives us out into the world. And basically is the thing that not necessarily that we do outwardly, but it's the thing that every day makes us want to wake up and put our feet on the ground and go and serve and love and move us closer to unity. And then we have to take initiative, right? That's that first pathway. We've got to do something with that energy. We don't get to just sit and wait. Then we hit our culture, which is where a kind of group of people come around us. Then we get the fun part, which is the pathway of growth. So growth is what it sounds like, right? It's growing in every way. Remember, this is Pearl sequence is prosperity. And prosperity, if you remember, is a balance among all the different parts of your life coming into harmony, right? Which is what the star pearl is actually keynoted. So yes, it's finances, but it's also your spiritual development and your relationships and your physical body. All of those things come into balance and into harmony, and they start to grow. So you guys are watching me embody these principles and these teachings in real time. And I think it's a part of what resonates with people when they watch me is I'm sharing the journey as it happens. And I had one of the most beautiful examples of the pathway of growth this morning. Like it literally is bringing a tear to my eye. I was just looking for my phone, which is I learned I can use as my webcam. That's why I look so much better than I looked in the past right now. So I don't have my phone to be able to swipe through the message. But um, somebody reached out to me. I'm about 90 or 95% of the way on believing or knowing that this is, I have nothing to worry about ever, right? Like burning that fear from the core of my being. But I'm not, or I wasn't all the way there. There's still this like nagging dog. If you're familiar with the tarot, the Fool is a card in the tarot deck, and it's this guy, and he's like kind of gleefully looking up, and he's on the edge of the cliff, and there's this little dog that's just kind of like biting at his ankles, barking at him, and that little dog is the fear. And there's a period of our lives where we just, that's what we're encouraged to do. These are archetypes, right? We just kind of look to God. We still hear the fear. We know it's there, but we still move through the world as if what we believe is the truth, because it is. We just need enough evidence to prove it to ourselves. So obviously the channel's been growing, right? The people that I'm working with has been growing. The container is growing. And the message that I received today, someone offered me a substantial amount of money, like well into five figures as a gift without any expectation of return. That is the power of what you are working in right now. That is the power of this synchronicity. You show up in the world in service. You share your heart. You share your deepest wound with the world, and you just lay it out there. And you're going to be worried that there's going to be so much judgment and that nobody's going to understand and that you're not going to get it right. And the exact opposite is what's going to happen. I now know 100%. Like there's not a bit in me anymore. And so I'm sure it'll come from time to time, but I want this for you so deeply. It's life changing to not have to constantly be looking over my fucking shoulder, wondering what's going to come and when it's going to come. And I know so many of you feel that way. I know you do, because I know I did for such a long time. And it's okay to feel that way. That's a part of our path too. But when you stick with the path and you let yourself be the fool, this is what comes. Okay. So the other the other bit with the pathway of growth that I want to say, and this is really, really important, is that the pathway of growth is the one pathway in the Gene Keys Golden Path sequence that operates regardless of frequency. Meaning, if you take initiative from a low frequency and you dump lots of energy into that thing, it will grow. And so you need to be very careful with the pathway of growth because it will grow to the point that it explodes and it falls apart. So you've got to make sure, in other words, that the fuel that is driving your service to the world or is driving what you're doing out in the world is a fuel of service and not a fuel of selfishness because it'll work either way. But if it's selfishness, the seed that we plant is what we get at the end. So you've really got to make sure and do some deep soul searching. Where is this coming from? It can be so, so subtle, the fear. And so it takes a lot of discernment, a lot of time. And if you do feel the fear, it's okay. Like I said, that's going to be there sometimes. You just got to make sure it's not the thing that's pushing you. That's not the thing driving you to take the action. It's just kind of there barking at you in the background, but it's not the thing driving the momentum. What's driving the momentum is this, right? It's making choices from that heart space. Okay. Any questions on the pathway of growth? I know that was like just a quick touch, but this could be from last week. It could be on the story I shared, any of that stuff. Any growth questions?
I have a question. So the growth, is that from vocation to culture? Is that correct?
It's
Where's the
from
pathway to
culture
growth?
to brand.
So that's the pearl.
Correct. Yeah, it's in the Pearl sequence, running from
Okay, so
culture to
culture.
brand. Anything else?
I wanted
Good.
to share a similar story
Please.
that when I was at the 2-day event in London, I knew that I wanted to do the Star Pearl. I knew that I wanted to do the Mastery of Akashic Records. And I knew that I wanted to redo a course, but money was short and I didn't know how I was going to finance it. And I just kept saying a miracle will happen, a miracle will happen, a miracle will happen. And two miracles did happen that I did find the money. And I got the Akashic Records. Yeah, a miracle happened. I can't share any more than that, but yeah, so I managed to do it. It was amazing.
It is. It's wild, and this is okay, so here's another really important piece of this. If you are trying to control how it comes to you, you're screwed, right? Like it never would have come if I thought I needed to like launch some offer, right? Like if all my effort went into putting together some offer for you guys and for the YouTube audience, I promise you, I would not have been able to show up with the same energy and have the same impact on this person. And therefore, I mean, who's to say, but it might not have ever come if that was the case. So instead of worrying about how is it that I'm going to make this money, I worried about how is it that I can be of the most service to people in the world. That's it. Okay. So moving now into the sphere of the brand. So the sphere of your brand is an interesting one because it is a sphere that serves double duty, right? So, like the sphere of vocation that we kicked off the Pearl sequence with, which in the Venus sequence is also the sphere of your core wound, right? So, the core wound gene key and the vocation gene key, they're in the same place in the profile and they hold the same gene key. It's just we look at it through one lens when we're looking at the Venus sequence, and we look at it through a different lens when we're looking at the Pearl sequence. Well, the brand is the same thing. It's the same sphere that starts, if you're going through the golden path in the traditional way, it's what kicks it all off, right? It's the sphere of your life's work in the activation sequence. And we come back, and it's really the last sphere in the golden path, right? Even though there is the pearl is talked about more as it's the reason that it's the three pathways run to it that are titled quantum. The pearl is more something that just kind of appears. It's not really part of the pathway necessarily. So brand really is the last sphere of the path. It's kind of similar in the gene keys, right? We've got gene key 63 and gene key 64. And gene key 63 in the I Ching, this is hilarious, but it's true. The name for it is after completion. The 64th gene key, the name for it is before completion. So even though it's the 64th, obviously is the last in the sequence, what you find is it's this infinite Mobius strip, and it just kicks us back into the journey over and over and over again, and these spirals that we talk about. So because this is the last sphere, again, man, the tarot is really coming into my mind this morning. Again, the tarot, the Fool, is actually the first card and the last card, oftentimes. But the Fool that started is very different from the Fool at the end, right? The Fool in the beginning is a, what's the word? Naivety, right? It's a youthful folly. It's an innocence. You're a fool because you don't know anything yet. And then when we get there at the end, you're the fool because you see the truth. And when you see the truth, you can't help but laugh. Like that's where you end up. Sorry to spoil it, but that's where you end up when you walk this journey completely and fully. Well, it's the same thing in the sphere of your life's work and the sphere of your brand. So when you embark on this journey with the sphere of your life's work and then your evolution, the line that connects those is your pathway of challenge. And the way that I talk about the life's work is it is the deepest internal work that you have to do. In other words, it's going to take a lifetime for you to move from into the city, let's say, of your life's work. So it's this deep internal movement of energy. Also, life's work represents outwardly, what are you meant to do in the world, right? What is it I'm here to help people with? Because when you go through that transformation, of course, you're the most perfect person to help other people through that same transformation. Now, when we get back there, we've walked the entire golden path. We've used the activation sequence to develop a deep, deep love and relationship with God or the universe or whatever word you want to put there. We've come into faith and trust. And then we use the Venus sequence to open our heart and to have deep relationship and deep connection and deep love, not just for people, and not just love as we have bastardized the word, but love, true love, the connective tissue of the universe love. And then here in this pearl work, we begin to show up in service and share our gifts out with the world. And so when we make our way back to the brand, we're back, but we are either completely without, or I take it back. We're back with our ego put in the place where it is supposed to be, right? Which is in service of the whole, not to try and take as much of the whole as it possibly can. And so our brand is our soul's voice. It's what our soul is here to do in the world, not what our ego is here to do in the world. Richard starts there because that's what we all think, right? When we get into this work, we're just like, I want to know what I'm here to do. What is my purpose? And so he meets us where we're at. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a part of the journey. And if that's where you are, that's okay. You cannot skip that. You've got to honor it. You've got to keep following it deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And you'll get somewhere. I won't spoil where, but you'll get somewhere with it. And so our soul's voice is deeply, deeply resonant with our fractal line. So I've talked a lot about fractals in the past, but just to touch on it for those that are not super familiar, there are essentially three core fractals. They all come from the same one, right? And there was this very, 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 very early split into three. And then from there, there's been more branches, and some people are going to have a closer affinity to you than others. But the fact that you're on this call right now means that we're on the same fractal line, right? There's no doubt about that. Because think of what are we at? 9 billion people in the world right now. Like, what are the chances that you're on this call? Not very good. So we're very much on the same fractal line. And so when you allow your soul to find its brand, which I'll say more about what that means, you start to resonate, vibrate on a deep, deep level. You begin to have a deep impact on the people that are in various places on your fractal line. And because you have a deep impact on them, well, when you impact other people, that is a form of service. That's a form of giving. And we don't do it because something is going to come back to us, but you better believe something's going to come back to us. So when we start to honor our brand, this is when the wheels and gears really start to turn. Now, what do I mean by honoring your brand? Okay, this is fun. Do you guys know the Oscar Wilde quote about imitation? Does anybody know it? Okay, I'm going to give it a quick Google, because I only knew half the quote. And it really upsets me because you really need to know the other half. Okay. The quote that I've heard my entire life is, limitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Has anybody ever heard that before? I'm seeing some yeses and some no's. Okay.
Are you
I thought
saying limitation with an L or imitation with an
imitation.
I?
I think the first time I said L, but that was incorrect. It's imitation with an I. Yes. So just to say it one more time, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So that's the first half. But I thought that was it. I've heard that my entire life. Like, oh, how flattering. Like you're like, I mean enough to you, or had enough of an impact on you that you want to recreate what I'm doing, right? The second half of that quote is that mediocrity can pay to greatness. So the full quote, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery that mediocrity can pay to greatness. Well, that changes the flavor of that quote a little bit, doesn't it?
That
So
really
what I'm
changes
getting
it a lot.
a lot,
When you think of the eighth gene key and Richard's
style.
contemplation on imitation
Yes,
and how it is that mediocrity.
exactly. Exactly. You got it. That's where I was going to go next too. The eighth gene key for the uninitiated: mediocrity, style, exquisiteness. So what I'm getting at here is your brand must be uniquely you. Can't try to be like me. You can't try to be like Richard. You can't try to be like anyone else out there doing the thing. Tanmayo, Elijah, you name it. Obviously, those are Gene Keys people, or maybe not so obviously. Those are Gene Keys people. Um, it's got to be you, and it needs to be you in every way, shape, and form. So the way that you speak, right? The tone that your voice carries matters a lot. The clothing that you wear. And this is something that I'm actively thinking about or contemplating right now is like, what do I want my outward style, like my clothing to be? Richard talks about his being this like woolen natural material. Every time you see Richard, he's in wool stuff that's got his neck covered. Like that's just his thing, right? Like he knows his style. It's in, here's another thing that is stylistic. Some people shift not the core of themselves, but shift how they communicate and depending on what space they're in. In other words, they take into account others a lot. Whereas other people, their brand is like who comes? Rick Rubin, right? He shows up and you just get what you get. Bill Murray, another guy that's like you just get what you get when they show up. And so these are all considerations that we need to think about with our brand. Another question to think about is what is stopping you? So this is just drop in the contemplation bucket. What is stopping you from fully inhabiting your brand? Oftentimes it's a fear of rejection, right? On a deep, deep level, but it might not be. You got to do that. You got to do that line of questioning for yourself. What else has to do with our brand? Whether or not you're like, go ahead, Casey.
Along the lines of what you just said there, so you said what's stopping us, and you and I had this conversation, and I this fear of rejection, and a new fear kind of popped up with me just like 2 days ago, and it came through the dream arc and the slug,
Mm-hmm.
and the slug is related to the eighth gene key,
Okay.
in the lower realm, and it's the fear of your own uniqueness.
Yes.
And that just like landed like a weight. And it represents this fear that I'm moving through right now. And yeah, just wanted to share that,
Yeah,
because
that's
we touched on the eighth gene key, and there is a fear of stepping into your brand and putting yourself out there, and yeah.
yeah, no doubt about it, right? Like that, when you step into your brand, people are going to see you. Like you're no longer going to go unnoticed. And
Okay,
that can be a scary thing for people.
can I share one more thing?
Of
Because
course.
this I didn't sleep at all last night, because this is so, the synchronicities right now of like of this call and this fear that came to me. And then because I put out there like I want to I want to face my fears, like I want to be of greatest service to the whole, and show me what is in my way. Where are my like last little blind spots? And the doing this star pearl has been so like profound. Oh my gosh. So last night I got this ping, and I usually don't open my email late at night, but whatever, I opened it and there was an email. And Jay has context on this from just we just connected a week ago, and I've been in a 3-year kind of healing container. 3 years ago I was working as a firefighter engineer driving a fire engine, And May 3rd, 2022 was my last day at work. I don't want to get on the whole story, but there was an email from a battalion chief giving me a direct invitation to a retirement dinner because I retired medically just recently last year. And I haven't had complete closure yet because I dropped off the face of the planet to everybody in that old part of my life. And I've been had this deep, deep fear of like showing myself again because I'm so different. I don't even, and I told Jay this in vulnerability. I'm at this place where like I'm learning. I feel like I'm coming into like my brand, and now I'm being pushed out to like, okay, you got to face this last fear. So the email is like, we want to invite you to come to this dinner, and in fact, we're opening it up because we want to invite you up on the stage to like recognize your career. And just so many memories and thoughts, and the fear like came up right, into my throat. And I knew immediately that I needed to go to this. And for the first time in 3 years, and here's the synchronicity, they planned it. And I don't think this was on purpose in their world, but the dinner is on May 3rd, which will be exactly 3 years from my last day when I went to the hospital from work.
Dude, this is like life-changing opportunity for you. And what is required is for you to show up as you,
Just
like
show up.
the
Yeah.
real you, right? Like the style that you have now, we're not going to get up we're not going to show up as the old version of Casey. We're going to show up as the new version of Casey, and we're going to watch what happens. We're going to watch the power that brings. And you're going to wipe away that story in a night. And it's going to be dope. Thank you for sharing that, brother. I really appreciate it.
So,
Jan.
Yeah, I just wanted to share based on what Casey just said, and there's a lot of new faces on this call today. I've been here for a while, and one thing I shared a while ago is this acronym for fear. And Casey, when I hear you speak, I think that exactly what you described relates to the acronym. Former experiences affecting reality. And I just wanted to put it out there for you because what you just described with the ping of the email, I mean, the ping by itself was enough to sort of set off the reaction to start with. And that's interesting, right? I mean, that's where it started. So there's former experiences affecting reality. As you mentioned, closure or getting closure. I think the problem is that what we are not taught is two things. One is conditioning is continuously. I actually just threw something on my LinkedIn today about that conditioning is going on continuously. The problem is most of it happens non-conscious, so we're just not aware of it. Deconditioning takes effort and energy. We need to do it consciously. And the darn thing is nobody taught us the first thing I just described about how it works. And then nobody taught us about the deconditioning, what we need to do to actually change that. Or how we can decondition these experiences that you just described. And a while ago, and I just finished it actually, I participated in a writing challenge. You can find this online if you look for Tim Clare 100-day writing challenge. That's really about improving our writing skills, and that's what I'm doing. I'm working on a book right now, and I just wanted to improve my writing skills, so I had a companion to do that whole journey. But in episode 54 on SoundCloud, because that's where he put the whole thing, it's for free. It's a free thing that Tim Clare put out there. Episode 54, he opened with, if you're not ready for a big experience, you may want to skip the next 4 episodes because this is going to go deep. And he mentioned all of a sudden, he said, you're going to be writing about the most traumatic experience in your life. And while he said it, normally he does an introduction and then you get 10 minutes to write. But he was in the middle of his introduction. He still has 5 minutes to go. I paused and I started writing because I knew what it was. I knew what I had to write about. And it sounds like you have a very clear thing on your mind that you could potentially write about as well. So I started writing, and then he explained what the whole thing was about in a 4-day process by a gentleman called Pennebaker. And based on that, I crafted a little document with some writing prompts that people can use if this is something you want to do. And Jay, if I have permission, I want to share that in the chat.
Please. Yeah, that'd be great.
It's a free thing. Use it. If people find it useful for themselves, have fun with it. If you find it useful for the people around you, have fun with it. Feel free to share it. You don't even need to leave my name in there, which is in there. It's just a Word document. But see if that helps you for the closure part. It did magic for me on an experience I had where the moment I started writing, I was like, hey, Jan, there's still a lot in here actually, where I thought from about 20 years ago, I had gone through the whole thing. And then after the 4 days of writing, I experienced so much lightness and clarity that literally my walking outside changed because I left a lot of weight behind me. So I just want to share the document with you. But the key thing is, if you want to just be in that process that I was in, check out Tim Clare's 100-Day Writing Challenge, episode 54 on, that's where he starts, on SoundCloud. It's a fun thing. It's completely for free, as I said. And then check out Pennebaker. So just have a look.
You're the best, Jan. Thank you for your generosity, brother. I really appreciate it. Yeah, that rings a bell. So there's an exercise that I use in the work that I do with people that's called expressive writing. And I'm drawing a blank on, it might even be Pennebaker.
It's Pennebaker.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's Pennebaker. Yeah.
Got it. So same, it's probably this very exercise where it's called narrative. So there's a couple different kinds of trauma, right? And one of them is what's called narrative trauma. And narrative trauma comes about when there's something that happens in our lives and we carry a story, a narrative around it and who we are and what we are. And expressive writing, this 4-day exercise, is designed to help to retell that narrative in a totally new and different way. And it is totally life-changing. And I really, really recommend doing it. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Interesting that was in both of our worlds in different ways, and at the same time, not that surprising. And then, okay, with fear, here's another acronym that I've carried for quite a while, and it's similar but just different words if they resonate. False experience appearing real is another one that is similar. Okay. So brand, another question that you can just drop into your contemplation bucket is just what is my brand, right? How do you want to sound? How do you want to, Jan, did you have something, bro?
No, I just want to say, I mean, as you turn it back to brand, it just hit me like, I mean, and this is obvious because it's behind me, but that's the brand. This is what my brand is. This is what my life's work is all about. Moving from agitation, the restlessness, into initiative, doing something, which in this case was about building the document and studying it, into awakening. And it was interesting as I started with the Gene Keys about a year ago with life's work, and then going through the correct order to end up right now in basically the Pearl, to see that how was something I started with in the beginning, liberating humanity's potential as a statement, as my brand, including my own, because there's still so much to liberate. But then, so it's interesting when you literally go through the journey and you end up with brand and you're like, agitation, initiative, awakening. Isn't that wonderful? And I think that's what the whole fear thing is all about. As I just said, there's so much we haven't learned, and there are tools, right, to address this. Like the Gene Keys is one of those big tools, and there's many others. And I think the Pennebaker thing is another one that just, if only people who would have had a major accident or major surgery or a breakup or losing a job or whatever happens in their life, and everybody's like, all right, move on. I mean, don't complain, don't worry, just move on. You're like, well, hang on, there's so much stuff to process here. And we just don't take the time. They don't teach us. So that's the awakening part. So that's why I was smiling when you said, let's go back to the brand. I was like, oh yeah, that's the brand. So
Totally. Yeah, and just for some additional clarity, I want to make sure everyone understands that the brand is not like it's not like a business that we have, right? It's not like it's not like a clothing line or like my brand is not my YouTube channel. It's like that isn't what I'm talking about here. The brand is you. You are the brand.
Yes. I love how Richard says your brand is your unique, authentic expression on how you show up and present yourself. Has to do with the tone of your voice and how you speak, how you walk,
Yeah.
how you move through the world. So,
Yeah, totally.
yeah, thank you for this discussion. It's like, you know,
Always good timing.
surfing the beautiful wave of flow,
Totally.
which my action triangle is catching the wave.
Nice. I love it. Go ahead, Mac.
Yeah, I've got Jinky 10, line 6, and that moves from self-obsession, yes, I have been, to naturalness, to being. And it's just been me, literally me. And as you've mentioned, it's dealing with all those fears, like having inconsistent energy, not knowing if I'm going to be able to do things, my forgetfulness. Sometimes I forget words. Like I remember I was talking about Methuselah, and is recorded as the oldest person in the world that has been recorded. And I was going, what do you call the Testament? What do you call the first book of the Bible? Old. That's that's what I mean at forgetting. I forget words. Do you know what I mean? You just think, my goodness. And I find that so embarrassing. And I'm also dyslexic. So I get sometimes with pronunciations, I get muddled up. And I kind of got to be, it's okay if you get muddled up, you get muddled up.
I'll tell you what it is, Mac, is endearing, right? Like it is so
Yeah.
endearing to have somebody that just like can show up and be themselves and own those little intricacies that we all have, right? These little ticks that every single person has. That's what makes us awesome, each individually.
Help.
I love it. Okay, so questions is just like,
Jay, just one moment.
yeah,
Can we say so that brand is who I am, and purpose is how I express myself in the world? Is the how?
I would more say that brand is, yeah, I guess who I am mixed with what I do. Like those two things kind of
Okay.
shoved together, I would say.
And
And then purpose is
the how?
purpose is yeah, like more of like an inner drive, and also it's like a way of being. It's like a quality of consciousness. So it's like you know, you're like if you just are a funny person and you make people laugh all the time and you bring comedy to lots of different situations, like that oftentimes can be tied to your purpose because it's just like a way of being out in the world. Like you crack jokes.
Okay, because I have Gene Key 3 in my brand, and I think 31st in my purpose. So it's like I bring who I am. So is my brand is intuition. Is it? Is it chaos? In
Yeah,
innovation, or no innovation. That's not
innovation. Yeah.
another one. And innovation. So I bring innovation. I'm innovative.
Yep.
And in my purpose, I have leadership.
Mm. Mhm.
So okay, I cannot phrase it. I mean, I cannot express it into words. Is my difficulties with jinkies. I have some sense of it in my mind, but expressing into words.
It's more important in your mind anyway. Don't worry about
Okay.
it. Don't worry. All that matters is that you feel it, right? You feel it, and then you allow
Yes.
that energy to be the thing that moves you out in the world. You don't have to express it.
Okay. Yes, I feel it. Yes.
Okay. So just the question that I want to pose to you guys that I really, really recommend you spend some time with. Set a timer for 20 minutes. That's like my go-to whenever I have these kind of contemplative questions. Bust out your journal and just write. Don't stop, don't filter, don't do any of it. What is my brand? What clothes do you want to wear? What do you want to sound like? Do you want to do things online or do you want to do things in person? You know, like lots and lots of different areas, arenas. Like there are as many brands as there are humans. So do not lock yourself into a bucket anywhere.
So I want to say something.
Go ahead, Alicia, please.
We were just passing through Gene Key. I don't know if we still are,
I don't understand anything.
but we were passing through Gene Key 63
Yep.
brand, and I had some synchronicities. So some of the stuff which I think where maybe in the past I've gotten stuck.
Can I pause you for a sec, Alicia? I think it's the way that you're laying is making the mic really muffled. It's really, I can hear it, but it's like really tough.
I'll try a different.
Oh,
okay.
so much
There we
better.
go.
So much better. Thank you.
Okay. So I had some synchronicities around my Gene Key 63, like while we were passing through it, and it's interesting because when I first thought of that one, like when I first discovered the Gene Keys, and I looked at that, I was terrified by the doubt shadow, and I think I've spent a lot of my life doubting myself, doubting whether I'm a good person, just having a lot of insecurity, and I think to some degree having a narcissistic father was there to test me, to push me through that doubt to the deepest level so that I could actually come out on the other side of it, truly believe in myself. But I've been letting go of these patterns of the people that I kept trying to fix the narcissist by dating narcissists over and over and over. And right when we were coming into Gene Key 63, I got a text message from someone I dated for a moment named Richard, and he wrote me saying, "I'm sorry I was such a Richard to you." Because dick. And he said, "I hope you're thriving." And I had a moment where I was just like, whoa, like it just felt like a weird catalyst moment where I suddenly had this little push forward from the universe that was telling me like don't doubt that you've been impactful in other people's lives, and like don't doubt where you're going. Like right now I moved through a lot of discomfort really fast and got myself out of a situation where I felt really unsafe because of a stalker, and I'm like moving. It's actually pushing me into my new life, and I'm selling my whole old wardrobe and like refreshing my style and figuring out who I am, where I want to be, how I want to show up in the world. And I'm really excited. And I found my way into a program where I'm healing my gut, and I just feel amazing. And it could be that I'm taking St. John's wort as well, but I just feel extremely happy right now. And I've been riding my bike like up to 7 or 9 miles a day, so just like bounding with energy again. It feels amazing. I don't know. I feel great, and it's really good to be here where I'm encouraging people.
I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy you're in a good space, and I'm also grateful that we're talking about brand today, because what perfect timing for you as you kind of pivot into
Totally.
the new version. All right, team.
Yeah.
So it is 58 right now. And like I said, unfortunately, because I randomly am battling pneumonia, even though I don't feel like it at all, and because I double booked myself because of a scheduling issue, I got to wrap this bad boy up an hour earlier than usual today. Couple things. We will, obviously, we didn't get all the way through. So I'll start on the next one with the pathway of service, which is really, really important. So if you can make it back, I really would love for you to be here, because that pathway of service runs from the brand down to your vocation. And it is the thing that seals this triangle, which creates this toroidal energy in your life. And it is what makes you and your aura and your energy grow and grow and grow and grow. But that only happens if you're able to seal this triangle of the pearl with your pathway of service. So that's what we'll talk about next time. And I'll also talk about the pearl itself, as well as the pathway of the quantum, which runs from brand, vocation, and culture into that pearl sphere. Yeah, so 2 weeks from today would be, what's that? The 20th, I do believe, of March. We will be on Zoom still. We've got a random thing for you guys. Inside of the container that I have, we do what's called family constellation work, if anyone is familiar with family constellations. I've got a therapist in the container who is absolutely incredible. Her name's Marcy. She facilitates them for us. And we're doing one. It's actually the Tuesday before. So I guess that would be the 18th. And we're going to open it up to people that have come to the wisdom calls. It is going to cost. I'm not exactly sure what the dollar amount is going to be yet. Somewhere in the $50 to $70 range, more than likely. It's going to be a 2-hour situation. And basically, if you're not familiar with constellation work, what we're going to do it in the space of the gene keys. So basically, we set an intention together, we say a prayer together, we get really deeply connected into this kind of unifying field, right? The Akashic record, if you will. And then we all lean into that field together, and one person is brave enough to say, I want to do the work. And that person will pick a sphere, a gene key, whatever feels important to them. And then we use other people in the container to externalize the energies that gene key holds. So in other words, let's say it was my gene key and we were doing 32, my life's work, my brand. Maybe Casey might hold the gift of failure, and Jan might hold the shadow of failure, and Jan might hold the gift of preservation, and Mary Alice might hold the city of veneration. And what happens is Marcy, who's facilitating, is going to ask different things and different questions to each of the people that are involved. And you just tune into that field without thinking, and you just share, because in that moment, you are an externalization of the energy that is moving through the individual whose gene key we are constellating together. And you would be amazed at what comes through when we do these things. Mary Alice, yeah, please.
I just want to say, I know everybody has to run, but I did it with the container with Marcy too. It was unbelievable. Like the things that people came up with, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly the thing. It's crazy how the energy, we're all feeling the same thing. So if you can join, I thought it was amazing.
Thank you, my dear. Yeah, Mary Alice is in our little squad, so she's got intimate knowledge of it. It's really awesome. You can YouTube it, look at what it is. If you're curious, I'll put it in the email. We'll have more information coming out there. Yes, there is a replay. Sorry, I'm just looking at questions that was there. It's going to go up on YouTube. I'll also email it out if you are on the list. And last thing, if you are interested in the deep work container that I have, or in working deeply with me, I do it for a 6 to 12 month timeline. We go really, really deep. Or I'm also now offering, just starting to do in person. So either I come to you, you come to me. We get like an Airbnb or whatever, and we spend a 1 to 5 days together, let's say, and do deep spiritual work, practices, gene key stuff, of course, eat good food, move bodies, all like basically I have a very practice heavy life. And it is, I'm realizing when I do it with other people, they're like, whoa, like that makes a really big difference for how I move through the world and how I feel. So I think there's some value there. So that's the other way that we can do stuff together. Okay. Last minute questions. Fantastic. Thank you all for being here.